Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
All right, Marco, we are live. Everyone, how are we doing today in this beautiful afternoon? I am with Marco Basile from Renegade Closers. Marco, how you doing today?
Doing great, Azzy. Thanks for having me today.
Awesome. One of the first questions that I like to start with to break the ice a little bit and give the audience some context as to how you came into this industry is to ask around your background. Can you tell us a little bit about how you broke into sales outsourcing?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, before sales outsourcing, I was actually a closer, right? I was actually a setter and a closer, and before that, I've been an agency owner for twice in a row. I was actually an agency owner for selling Facebook advertising to SaaS companies, and I did the same thing, selling CRO to e-commerce companies. But I was getting tired of doing all this work, all these fulfillment for these specific industries. And eventually, that's how I got into sales. I got into sales as a setter and a closer for multiple offers. And I quickly realized that there was something missing in the industry. There was like an imbalance between the business owners and the closers. And we wanted to fix this issue. Or I wanted to fix this issue for the closer to be eventually able to place the great closers, top closers on great offers, which includes like coaching, consulting, and B2B. So that's really how I broke into the into the outsourcing industry, and yeah, I mean that's actually like a very brief overview.
Okay, it sounds like most sales stories, you grew up through the trenches, doing sales, setting appointments, closing appointments. You saw some opportunities in the market, specifically you mentioned in the terms of closing rather than setting the appointments. And that's how you started working with your agency now. You did mention also some of your best customers, which was going to be my next question. Who are the best fit customers for Renegade Closers? You mentioned something around coaching. Can you double click on that for me a little bit?
No, absolutely. So most of our closers that we have on board right now have very deep experience with coaching, like selling any kind of coaching offers. That would be like real estate, would be like executive coaching, business coaching, YouTube coaching, anything that you can think of that they have experience in, and they're really good at it. So like most of our customers, they would be like coaching, consulting, experts, creators, this kind of niche. But eventually, we're actually working and improving our systems to break into the SaaS industry because we actually see a need, or SaaS or B2B companies, because we see a need over there. Like these companies hardly are able to handle objections properly, and they're not really able to use a framework that helps them to connect with the prospect at a deeper level and eventually customize a solution to their exact needs. Very big, very common issues in the industry include lack of, objection handling. They should be handled upfront, not at the end of the call, trying to chase in the lead or trying to chase in the prospect. Not being able to connect with the prospect, so like not being able to ask the right questions that actually help the closer or like the founder, whomever is taking the call, to actually understand the situation, the problem, and eventually craft a custom solution. And the last thing, which is very very important as well, is to customize the pitch. So like I see all the time. There are these coaches and founders, they are so passionate about their product or their service, whatever they're selling, but eventually, when they get to the end of the call, they pitch the same thing over and over again. That's actually something that I've seen doing, even in the SaaS industry, pretty much the same common issues, just selling a different solution. And that's how, we're actually working on it, because we know we can actually bring a ton of value to that industry as well, instead of actually running, the same demo, the same pitch deck every time.
All right, now this is interesting, Marco, because this service is slightly different than the ones I typically review, which are for appointment setting. In your case, you are sharing how your service is for closing, and therefore your best fit customers are those that are struggling. They have pipeline, they are booking meetings, but they're just not converting enough of those opportunities. They're burning out those leads basically. And you mentioned, hey, if your closing game is not on point in the sense of handling the objections, managing the relationship with the prospect, guiding them through the next steps and their buyer's journey to ultimately close with you, that's where your services become a better fit. And I really want to unpack a little bit more on this topic. So, how about we jump into maybe a success story? Maybe you can share a little bit about what specifically it entails your service around closing deals for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. So I will actually give you first a brief overview of the service, how it works, and who is it for, and then I will share a few success stories. So like closing is different from setting in the sense that they are complementary services. Okay, so like setting is going out there and booking appointments on the client calendar. We actually start from that exact moment in time. All right. So we actually jump on sales calls or even on discovery calls, and we close the deal. So we bring the prospect from, let's say interested to working together with the client. All right. And, we do that with a series of frameworks. Like I shared that a brief overview, a few minutes earlier, but pretty much depending on on the service, we can have like a one call close. Below 10K, this is very possible. Of course you gotta have a great closer, but that's all we're all about. Or you can have a two call close, which is pretty much a discovery call and a sales call. And of course, when you have like bigger B2B deals, like 30, 50 or 70K or higher, of course you're gonna have like a longer sales process, like 1, 2, 3,
Multiple meetings.
call close,
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there definitely can be longer sales cycles that require multiple meetings, and you can take care of all of those. So you were saying at the beginning, you come in when the first meeting from your buyers prospects, when as soon as they said the first meeting to talk to sales, that's when your team comes in, takes over the relationship until it's closed, regardless of the follow-up required in between. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, that depends on the requirement. There are companies out there that have an SDR or that have some kind of setter that takes a discovery call, and then we will come in on the sales call. If that's not the case, then of course we start from the setting call, so from the discovery call all the way to the close. So discovery call, sales call, and then if needed, like a follow-up call, email follow-ups and all that stuff. The point is. These are not your typical salespeople in the sense that they are all working on commission. That's why we bet people, we bet clients so hard in order to understand if they're able to actually, fulfill, deliver, but especially if they have the right metrics in place, because that's really important for a closer. Otherwise, if there are no calls, how can he really make money? There is no way for him to do so. But what I was saying is that these people are working on performance. Therefore, they're going to do anything they can in an ethical way, with integrity, to close the deal, keep the prospect accountable to his own, goals, and eventually, making sure that everything is all right and making sure that he is the right prospect. Like something that it must be done. And that I see most people not doing today is that not only maybe they don't qualify the prospect enough, but they don't disqualify the prospect either. They don't disqualify the prospect, all right? So they just let the prospect discount their value as a founder, as an offer owner, as a I don't know, CMO, head of sales, whatever it is. They just they are not able to disqualify. They don't want to disqualify the prospect. To make him not feel bad, for whatever reason. But it's actually the best way to show that you have a value and authority in the market, and that you are actually, worth talking to. I was actually,
Right.
I was actually talking, and I will be brief here. I was actually talking yesterday with a prospect, and yeah, I mean, he was really hammering on the fact of like lowering our setup fee, but eventually if you say yes, maybe I mean that could work, but most of the time, from my experience and even from our closers experience, that is not going to work because that buyer, the potential buyer, is going to disqualify, your services, like your value. So that's really important, like making sure that the prospect disqualify and even disqualifying him, like so saying that at some point in time. You have the prospect saying, "Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a good opportunity for me. Why do you say that? Like why don't you jump on this call today? I mean, why do you think that this is going to work for you? Like you let him sell himself on the offer. So yeah, that was actually very very brief, but I hope it makes sense.
Okay, now I love that you mentioned the two sides of the coin, that is the qualification. We all hear about qualification frameworks, qualification criteria, band, medic, and a few others. But it's just as important to disqualify, right? So you can help with that part of qualifying or disqualifying. But ideally, there should be some motions in place because you arrive at the first meeting that is set and then can take over. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was also around the target market for these conversions. So you did mention the industry, you've been working in coaching, but also preparing to help companies in the SaaS and technology industry. What about geography, languages, and size of the companies that you close? Is there any sweet spot that you recommend?
Well, I mean, to be honest, so far we've been working mostly with, with the English market, whether it is, in Europe, UK, or US. Like the most part is actually US because that is, the most chunk of the ticket offers. But yeah, I mean, that's actually, a very brief overview for geography and language. As far as the company size. Again, like just to be clear, are you asking me the company size that we work with, or the company size of the
That you
the
close,
prospects?
that you close for your customers, the prospects of your clients.
Okay, nice. Well, I mean, in this case, that really depends on the offer, correct? So, like when you talk about coaching, you have different sides of deals, correct? So, like say that you are between 0 and 10K, then that offer is going to be for small businesses. All right. If the offer is, let's say, between 10 and 20K, which is, it happens over and over again, that is going to be for more established businesses. And eventually, with B2B, then of course, it's like, more established companies. All right. But yeah, I would say for the company sides, you know, we go for now, we go like from, a few employees all the way to, 30, 40 employees. No more than that for now, but of course, we can apply the framework very easily and very doably even to other niches.
Now, you mentioned the framework, which is a key element of your service offering, Marco. There's no point talking about maybe the target lead list because you don't generate those, right? It's your customer. You did mention already qualification and disqualification of leads, but you join after the initial lead list is created. And you do have a role in the follow-up game. Maybe you arrive at the first meeting, but if the prospect goes cold, so maybe can you tell me a little bit about the follow-up motions that you can activate for your buyers? What channels do you use? How intensive? How many touches do you typically include?
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, I suppose that you're actually referring to the follow-up after the sales call, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, so first and foremost, the goal is always to avoid the follow-up game. And the reason why I say that is to actually qualify and disqualify the prospect so hard that we avoid any tire kickers or time wasters in a sales process. That's how actually why it's so important to be disqualified the prospect. I will make an example. Say that we jump on a call with a prospect. Our framework foresees that on the sales call, as the very first part of the call, first we establish, a very clear outcome. Then we actually go into the urgency that they have, we repeat on the urgency, and then eventually we qualify for the investment. So many people out there, they, still to this day, they keep the investment for the end of the sales call, which is totally wrong, because at the end of the day, yeah, of course, I mean, if the prospect is bought into it, and he has the money, that is all good. But right now, it's not good anymore, because it's like the old sales tactic. It doesn't work anymore on prospects. So prospects like transparency and honesty these days, and that's how we do it, right? That's actually why at the beginning of the sales call, we just be honest with them. Hey, listen, John, listen, do you think that you will be able to move forward with investment, of a 3K plus 5K a month management fee? If you feel like this is in line what you're looking for, and it could actually, solve all your challenges and help you reach your goals. And if they say yes, then we actually dive deeper into it. If they say no, we do understand what it is about. Okay, so John, okay, I understand. Things can get in the way, but listen, is this down to money? Is this down to timing, or is there something else? And you dive deeper and deeper until you find a solution, and eventually you agree right there and then on a follow-up call. Because the last thing that you want to do is chasing a prospect that is not qualified. Because you're just wasting your freaking time. That is not what we're going to do. We're going to qualify people very hard to make sure that we sell with integrity, all right, and then we sell with to clients, to potential clients that are going really to implement or to be collaborative, autonomous, supportive in the process, because whether you're an agency or a coach or a B2B service, it doesn't really matter. You need to work with supportive people who understand your value, who really do want, to work with you, not really, just someone that can actually give you money. That's really important.
Right. You reminded me of a sentence I heard a while back that said that maybes are the most hurtful answers you can get in sales, and that the best answer is yes, and the second best answer is no. A long maybe is going to have you chasing the wrong cats and maybe just wasting money and time there. So I really appreciate and agree with your comment. You mentioned, okay, so for the engagement, you can use email, you can use phone, but ultimately the value of your services and having the conversation continue to qualify, disqualify. One clarity note for the audience: when you mention sales call, I want to clarify that the first meeting that a potential prospect has with your company, where they say, hey, I'm open to learning more about your product, I want to meet with someone in sales, we typically call that a discovery meeting. Now, some companies have another meeting after that where you pike for initial interest and needs and whatnot. There's a follow-up meeting that is either considered what you were referring to as a sales call. Some other companies call it a demo call, specifically in software. If you first have a discovery to learn what they need, and then you do a demo to show them how that solution could be applied to their environment. That second call where we are saying or referring to the demo call is what you were mentioning earlier as a sales call. Perfect. All the way, and the next step would be as many sales calls required to then close the deal. Now, one last piece of information around this work of closing deals, or a success story that you can share. Tell me about the reporting capabilities. What should one of your customers expect when it comes to reporting? Do you get a dashboard? What type of information do you report, and how do you report that information? Help me clarify that, please.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. So we do report on a weekly basis, but of course, we integrate into the workflow of the client, whether it is Slack or HubSpot or any other kind of CRM, to share updates every day. Another thing that we do is actually jumping on a weekly sync call, so every week with the client, to talk about any challenges that we might be facing, and the solutions that we want to implement. All right. As far as reporting, so far, it really depends with the client. But let's say for but for simple solutions or really simple offers, we do spreadsheets. So we keep everything in spreadsheets. That's actually very manageable. For bigger, more complex solutions, we do use CRMs. So we do use our own CRM. And yeah, I mean we share everything in there, and we still share the stuff needed into the communication tool of the client.
Okay, let me confirm something there, Marco. So there's multiple ways you can connect, because there's going to be two handoff points, right? The first one is going to be from your buyers to you when they give you the leads and the people that are ready for the meeting. And then for the ones that close, there's a second handoff where you give it back now as a deal closed. You were saying you can work on the buyer systems, or you can work on your own CRM, or help me understand that it wasn't fully clear if you do have your own tech stack and it's proprietary, or do you always adapt to your buyer needs and work on their systems?
No, that makes sense. So like we do have our own, CRM or spreadsheet that we use, like very, manageable and very straightforward. That really depends on the offer that we're on. If we're on like on a complex offer with tons of sales calls and discovery calls, then of course we're going to use a more robust solution. If it's
Okay.
something that still needs to be ramped up, we're going to use something more basic like a spreadsheet. As far as talking about the client, we do implement in the workflow in the sense that we do implement into the Slack channel or into the into whatever communication tool they're using really, to share updates pretty much every day.
Okay, perfect. So there's a process to communicate. There's also an option to meet with and have that communication open to maybe discuss a pipeline, the velocity, any deals in specific. Perfect. My last question, I guess, is going to be, what would be some tips you can give for anyone listening to this episode right now and looking or considering to hire Renegade Closers, and they just want an advice that's going to increase the probability for them to achieve the results they want with you, Marco, with your team? What advice would you give them?
No, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm very open to give all the advice to understand. But do you think that maybe we should actually share a little bit more about the case studies and numbers? Because I don't know if we actually covered that a bit.
We can definitely talk a little bit about some numbers. If you can show me an example of numbers that your buyers were, how many, I don't know, meetings or how much revenue were they closing on a monthly basis before working with you and after working with you, and then some tips to get those results that you're about to mention.
Okay, nice. So yeah, I mean, as far as the results, we have closers closing for multiple, industries. In this case, coaching. We actually have, one of our closers, Daniel Matalana, who has closed for Dunlock as well, and he's been awarded from Dunlock to close deals between 2 and 35K, and he generated more than 800K in revenue in a little less than a year. So that was actually an example. Then we have with another, I think was Norbert Farkas, who closed for a sporting franchise coaching company. It generated in the first 5 weeks 213K in revenue closed, where the average ticket size was between 3 and 5 and 7K, and in total, in the course of 6 months, 6 to 12 months, it generated between 1.3 and 1.5 million. So it was around like 1.4 million in generated revenue. And another example, then I will actually stop there. Let me see here. Yeah, it was actually Amazon FBA coaching, which again is still like very common nowadays. For an eight-figure business, disclosure of hours. Then of course we have all the others. But disclosure of hours, Daniel Matalana when he was placed on the offer, he pretty much became the top rep from the last, because it was actually being placed in 83 days, and eventually ended up generating, 900K in revenue on a 5K ticket size, maintaining a consistent closing rate of 25%. And yeah, I mean, if that seems, if that might seem low to some people listening, I actually made some counts. It turns out that, the average closing rate, in the industry overall in sales is about 10 to 15%. The closing rate, on average for all disclosures is about 41%. So that's
One
really like
question,
an
Marco.
average that we've done.
One question.
For sure.
Sorry to interrupt you. That is a closing rate from a discovery meeting to deal closed?
That is a closing rate for a sales call, because the closing rate for from a discovery to a sales call, that is not is not truthful, or is not really taking into account the reliability of the closer, because most of the time these closers are being placed on sales calls. Like the setter takes the discovery call. It's not like for SDR agencies that once they book meetings, the client jumps on them. In most of the time for the ticket industry, the closer jumps on the sales call. So it's really, I would say, it's not really appropriate to judge an ability of a closer from the whole process, because again, you don't know the quality of prospects coming in. You don't know. There are lots of variables involved. There is like the show up rate on the discovery call. There is the qualification rate from the discovery to the sales call, and then there is even the show up rate on the sales call. So that it doesn't really make sense to take this into account. So the closing rate is the purest version. The purest is actually the closing rate on the sales call with,
It's just that
of
last
course,
step.
shoot up meeting. Yeah, exactly.
That last step, again, for the audience, sales call meaning the equivalent of a demo call. So that 25% is demo call to a deal closed. So again, to recap some numbers, you mentioned opportunities ranging in the 800K in a year, $1.5 million in a year on deals between $5,000 to $7,000, or the first one was around $25,000 that you mentioned every deal. In the last opportunity, also closing around 100K in a short time frame, which is pretty amazing. 25% conversion from demo to closed deal. If you are not averaging that type of conversion rate, then you should definitely consider Renegade Closers. My friend Marco, how about we wrap up with a couple of advices to achieve results with you fast?
No, yeah, for sure. So like, first and foremost, we are very, we qualify people very hard on a culture fit. We found out a formula to attract top closers in the industry, which is really all about attracting people with values, with integrity, that have, strong work ethic, they are resourceful, they are honest, and all this stuff. And, we do want that, we do want to see that even in the clients that we're going to work with. So the first thing is really being, a transparent person, honest, autonomous, like treating the closers as professionals, because it might seem weird, but like closers are being treated poorly and like being abused from the offer owners, especially on Facebook, which is like a very different industry from LinkedIn. So that's one. And the second one is being able, the second one is being able to fulfill, is being able to deliver results to the clients that we're going to close, because success rate is very important, because our closers are not going just to close stuff just because they want to make money. Yes, of course, everyone wants to make money, but eventually they want to feel good about themselves, that they closed someone or an offer that delivers results. Again, like this might be common on LinkedIn, where the bar is higher, but it's not on Facebook. So this is a key component, like a key thing, like success rate. What is your success rate of the clients that you work with so far? That's really important. And the third thing is the ability to scale. Now for most that is going to be different for most companies. Say that we place a closer on a 50K offer, then maybe there is not so much needed to scale because the commission structure, the earnings potential and all that stuff is going to be right there, even with a low number of calls. But if you have like a 5 to 10K offer, then in that case, you must have the ability to scale whatever that looks like. Like most agencies are going to be in trouble if they want to scale because they do all done for you. All right, so that's going to be problematic. And that's why with most of my clients, when we actually start working together, we always do consider the opportunity to turn their done for you solution into a done with you solution. So like actually coaching the prospects and the clients into, like doing whatever he needs. And to wrap up on this one, gotta be honest, this is like a game changer. Could actually be like a game changer for most companies out there, especially given the climate, the economic climate that we're going to get into. Because when it comes to recession, people want to do more of the stuff, pay less, be more involved, and this means that you're going to have happier clients in the long term because they're going to get more results naturally because they're more involved into the process. They have more skin in the game in done with you compared to done for you. All right, so that's going to be a game changer for most companies I've seen. Like all the companies that I've seen in the industry, they've scaled very quickly because they adopted a done with you model because it's very scalable. Once in the done for you, you have to deliver all of it. In the done with you can just place advisors to take on a subset of clients, whether it is like 3, 5, 7, or even 10 clients, depending on your model, and you can scale things very quickly. Yeah, that was actually my last tip for these companies out there.
Okay, I like that, Marco. The first one, know your numbers. If you know your conversion rates, your success rate, and you know it's low and you know that you need to improve it, that should be an indicator that, hey, you need some help. And that leads to the second one you mentioned, which was also be transparent. Be honest about your gaps so that we can come in and really alleviate the pain where it really aches and not overlap with what you have or may not have, right? And the last one, don't expect a done for you solution. Be in the lookout for a more done with you solution, because if you're not invested in the solution in sales, you hardly get something that works in the fashion of throwing money at the issue and having it fixed by itself miraculously. You really have to be invested to understand what was the impact, what was done, why, what was the root cause for the issue. And I guess that's the last piece of advice, if I interpret it correctly. Done with you will allow you to be invested, learn what's working, what's not, get the external help, but even learn from the external provider and be able to take those best practices in and deploy them in their internal team and scale the company way more than if you just try to bring a provider, delegate everything and forget, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like just to be clear, we are a done for you closing agency, so like we are a done for you. But most of the clients that we've been working with, they've seen success and they've seen like the ability of scaling, improving and increasing once they turn their model, like the done for you model, into a done with you model. Because now if from us it's like placing closers and training them, and it says so. There is really no opportunity for a done with you solution. You still have to place closer and setters, whatever that looks like. But like for some companies out there, there is the potential. Of course, SaaS companies, they still do like some kind of done with you model because the client is actually using the solution. But for some some companies out there, it's really like a done for you service. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's done for you. We do it all for you, and it costs you like 35K. Now, things are going to be widely different. And I just had a prospect, like, the other day with this issue. Things are going to be widely different if you sell a solution which is like a 15K, but instead of being able to, to deliver like free clients, like to fulfill on 3 clients every month, now you fulfill like on 9 clients every month. And you even unlock the ability to scale, So there is something that works very well for coaching, but of course works very well for agencies that wants to turn into a done with you model. and even for some B2B companies out there as well, depending on what they're selling, of course.
All right, awesome. Specifically, if they're below that threshold of 25% conversion rate from demo or sales call, as you mentioned it, into a deal one, then you should definitely look at Renegade Closers. Team, there you have it. You can find Renegade Closers in the CloudTask marketplace. Marco, thank you so much for your time. I'll see you on the next one, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks to you too, Eddie, and yeah, have a great one.